welcome to CAN TV Conversations. I'm Casey Drotter, and today we're talking about coronavirus trends in Chicago. Joining me is Dr. Ankur Dave. He's an infectious disease physician based out of Palos Heights. Dr. Dave, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for having me, Casey.
Yep. To start, would you mind just telling us a little bit about your background?
Sure. So I basically grew up on the south side of Chicago, close to Midway Airport. I did my training for internal medicine at Christ Hospital, which is also on the south side. I went to Loyola for my fellowship, and then after graduating infectious disease fellowship, I've been working on the south side at Palos with infectious disease for a few years now.
That's great, yeah. And obviously you know that the average COVID test positivity rate has risen in Chicago over the past 30 days. We're also seeing increases in COVID hospitalizations. What do you think are some of the contributing factors for this trend?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of things that are contributing to this. I mean, the biggest factor usually, it typically always is COVID fatigue. We're just not used to doing this. Everyone's kind of tired of the pandemic. I think the warmer weather, people gathering more because of that is probably also contributing. There's also traveling. More people are traveling, I think, whether it be for spring break. So all those are probably contributing to the rise. There's also different variants. I know they've isolated the British variant, which is a little bit more contagious, but that's sort of still to be determined. So I think those are probably contributing to the rise in Chicago.
Mm-hmm. And when you're looking at the trends, are there certain populations being hit harder than others in the Chicago area?
Yeah, looking at the most recent data from the city of Chicago, it looks like the younger population are the people who are having more tests that are coming back positive, getting more infected. I think the breakdown was 18 to 29-year-olds were among the highest. Right after that was the 30 to 39-year-olds. So I think it's that population that's contributing most to this rise that we're seeing now.
And obviously this is not Chicago's first rise in COVID rates. We saw a very high one last fall. What key differences are you seeing between this current trend and the surge we saw here in November?
The surge, I think, there's a few things that are probably different. I think the rate of rise compared to November, I don't think we're quite at that steep of a curve that we noticed before. I think part of it is, hospitals are always learning, and we have a little bit more tools at our disposal. They have the monoclonal antibodies now, which I think, have shown that if you give that to people before they progress, when they have milder symptoms, it tends to keep them out of the hospital. And so I think we're also the bigger other thing is the vaccine. I think as more and more people are getting vaccinated, I think that's also sort of helping sort of curb the rising increases.
Yes, you did mention the vaccines. Obviously, eligibility for these just expanded in Chicago. So when Chicagoans see these numbers and know that we have vaccines now available, how hopeful should that make them amidst this current trend?
I think they should be very hopeful. They're very effective. Obviously, they're not 100%, but overall, I think it's very promising. I know, we've got 50%. Oh, sorry, there's a low.
No worries.
Yeah, so 50, at least 50% of the population has gotten their first dose. And overall, I think the vaccines are going to be sort of, as more and more people get vaccinated, hope to return to normal, so to speak. I'm very hopeful about that.
Well, that's great to hear. And obviously, we are seeing some states kind of push to normalcy a little bit too quickly. The state of Indiana recently decided to lift its own mask mandates. So in your opinion, where should Illinois be in its fight against COVID before considering making a similar move?
Yeah, I think that it's a little bit tricky to answer. I think the biggest thing would be, from my standpoint, I want to make sure we get to a point where enough people are vaccinated, and that our hospital and our healthcare providers aren't going to get overrun. So, what the state's doing is they're constantly looking at the ICU availability, the bed availability in the hospital. And once all that, is good, I think it would probably be the time. I think we're still a little bit too soon, especially when we see a little bit of a rise. We want to make sure that as the vaccine is more available to sort of all the general population, we sort of start noticing that trend going down before we can, quote unquote, back to 100% normal. I think we can maybe start slowly, like we've done in the past, and keep an eye on those hospitalization numbers as well as our positivity rate. That should guide us when we can, fully open.
And speaking of fully opening and kind of getting back to normal, there have been some initial discussions about bringing back some marquee summer events in Chicago. I know Lollapalooza is a very popular topic, or talking point, in the city. What should COVID metrics be looking like before we start gathering in large crowds again?
Yeah, again, it's always tricky, right? There's a lot of factors that go into it, especially for something like Lollapalooza, where you're going to have people who are going to be traveling, coming in from different states and all that. So I think it should be the same metrics that we're looking at now. Making sure, at least for the state of, for the city of Chicago and the state of Illinois, the vaccine rates are high. More and more people are getting vaccinated. And the biggest thing is, if people get sicker, we have beds available in the hospital. We have resources available for them. So that we can take care of the people who are sick. It's probably what we'll be looking at, to sort of get back to our usual. I mean, summer in Chicago is wonderful, and I know a lot of people travel to get here to enjoy those venues and everything. So those probably what we should be looking at before we can, say, all right, we're fully open without masks and everything.
And obviously, some of those summer events are creeping up a little bit closer as we speak. At the current vaccination trends, do you see that as a likely possibility, or is it something that potentially might have to be tabled again, just in your opinion?
Yeah, in my opinion, I mean, based on the current numbers, I think if we continue with the current trend, and I know they're opening more and more vaccination sites as much as they can, fingers crossed, I'm actually hopeful for somewhat of a normal summer. Again, it's hard to predict exactly, but given where things are going, I'm very hopeful and optimistic about it.
All right, well, we'll keep our fingers crossed here. My thanks to Dr. Ankur Davi for joining us today. Thank you again for having this important discussion. And thank you for watching CAN TV Conversations. I'm Casey Drotter. Have a good day.